Onigiri, aka Japanese rice balls, have taken the Western world by storm ever since that one faithful moment.
These donuts are great! Jelly-filled are my favorite!
Though many cultures have their own versions of rice balls, onigiri are distinctly Japanese. So I got to thinking, how could we take the idea of an onigiri and swap ingredients and techniques to make them representative of different countries and cultures? Well, that's exactly what we've done. But before we make any rice balls, we gotta make rice. When making onigiri, it's very important that we use the right rice. What I mean by that is a short to medium grain white rice. This stuff here. And that's because it cooks up kind of starchy and sticky even when you rinse it, whereas a long grain rice like a basmati or a jasmine would just kind of fall apart and crumble on you. Trust me, I've tried it. There are many ways to cook rice. You could do it in a bamboo steamer, you could treat it like pasta, or you could add the correct ratio of water to rice and simmer it off in a pan. Of all the methods, none are easier and less fussy than using a rice cooker. Simply add your rice to the bowl, then rinse it in cold water 5 or 6 times until the water turns from hazy to clear. Top the rice with a finger's joint worth of water. Yes, that's a very technical measurement, I know. But my grandma taught me this one and it's never failed me, so it works, trust me, just do it. Click go, let the machine do its thing, then fluff the rice with a spoon and set it aside to cool down. While that's cooling, let's start on our filling. Before we get crafty and creative with our other onigiris, we need to make the classic Japanese onigiri. There are a few different styles of onigiri, but today we're going to make my favorite ones, the triangle-shaped ones. To a large mixing bowl, add in a can of drained tuna, followed by a 1/3 cup of mayonnaise. I'm using Kewpie mayo, then just a dash of togarashi and a pinch of salt. Literally, that's it. Mix it all up with a fork until creamy, and that is the filling. Plain and simple tuna mayo onigiri filling. Okay, so now we gotta shape our onigiris. There are a lot of ways to do this. Like I said, onigiri comes in many shapes and sizes, the most popular one being our triangle one. Now you can go out to the store and get these cutesy little molds. I actually got this from my local Japanese grocery store, but you know, I'm sure they sell them on Amazon or somewhere on the internet for very cheap. However, don't worry because you don't need this. You can do it all by hand. For the classic tuna mayo, drizzle on a bit of rice wine vinegar. Situate a bowl of agua next to your workstation to keep your hands nice and moist. Grab yourself a cup or so of the rice, then flatten it out with the palm of your hand, spoon in a teaspoon or 2 of the tuna mayo filling, then close the rice ball to form a ball. Do not overfill the onigiri, it's really easy to do, less is more here. From here, wet your hands again and place one hand palm side up. Plop the ball level on your palm, then use your other hand to form an arc over the rice. Think of it sort of as an A-frame roofing to your onigiri. This hand is what gives the rice its triangular shape. Rotate the rice ball, making sure that each side hits the flat side of your palm while applying pressure. Work the rice together, lightly squeezing until a cutesy little triangle is formed. I cut up some nori or seaweed sheets to apply the final touch. Just wet your finger with water, then rub it onto the rough side of the nori sheet before sitting the onigiri directly onto the middle like so. There she is, isn't she adorable? Look at that. Okay, you get the idea. This is the base level technique, so now it's time to put an American spin on things. Start off by searing 2 pounds of ground beef in a cast iron over high heat. I like to form the meat into little patties like this to help them brown more efficiently. Remove the beef from the pan and melt in 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, followed by half of a diced onion and a pinch of salt. Cook the onions down a bit until translucent, then reintroduce the ground beef using a couple utensils to break everything up into small pieces. Remember, this filling needs to be stuffed into little rice balls, so don't be leaving any intense chunk action. Once broken up, season with a pinch of salt, a few cracks of BP, and a dash of MSG, and about a tablespoon of garlic powder. Now it's time to lay on the classic American cheese. Bestow the beef with 9 or 10 pieces of Kraft singles or something similar, because in America we love our processed cheese on burgers. Then just kind of let it melt in a touch before mixing the whole shadiddly together. Boom, that is pretty much a cheeseburger, but you know, not in burger form. Shout out loose meat sandwich. Alright, set that aside and let it cool down a bit. There's really no need to spend too much time on this because you guys already know the drill. Just form your rice ball with wet hands, then shape it into a triangular onigiri. And yeah, that's pretty much that. But we ain't done yet. We're gonna put one more American twist on this. If there's one thing that I've learned so far from my Cooking the State series, it's that we Americans love deep fried food. So, in honor of that, we're going to fry these little beauties. A simple 3-station frying setup will get the job done here. First, dip the onigiri in some all-purpose flour that's been seasoned with a pinch of salt. Then it's into the egg wash, and lastly, dust it in fine breadcrumbs. Fry the onigiri in 350°F neutral oil for a couple of minutes, just until they turn nice and GB. Golden brown. Set those aside on a wire rack or paper towel lined sheet to drain, and then hit them with some salt fresh out the fryer, while we move on to our next onigiri. For this next one, we're heading to the country responsible for some of my all-time favorite food, South Korea. For this KBBQ-inspired joint, we need to start by broiling off some of our kalbi, that is Korean short ribs, that have been marinating in the fridge for about a day. If you'd like to learn how to make said marinade, I have a full video on that which I can link somewhere. While that's working, we are going to make a delicious sauce out of these two things. The red container is gochujang. It's a paste made from Korean chili peppers. The brown container is doenjang, which I totally mispronounced, but it's a fermented paste made from beans. Actually, they are both fermented, and they are also both packed with umami. If you mix them together, you get what's called samjang, which is a paste that's especially delicious on beef. Just mix equal parts gochujang and doenjang together and set that aside.
Tiniest bowl choice in the history of the world.
Some people add other stuff to their samjang, but we're just keeping it simple today. Once the kalbi is charred and cooked through, remove it from the heat dungeon and slice off the bulk of the meat from 5 pieces. Then, slice again into tiny little cubes. Remember, we gotta fit all this stuff in rice balls, so these pieces have to be pretty small. Also, save the bones from the kalbi to chew on, they're like the best part of the whole thing. Now, transfer the cubed kalbi into a cup of chopped kimchi and give everything a mixy-mixy. Pat yourself on the back because that is our filling. Now, we're gonna add some additional flavor to our rice by drizzling it with a bit of toasted sesame oil. And a little of this stuff goes a long way. You only need about a tablespoon for this 4 to 5 cups of rice. Mix the oil in with wet hands, then, as we've done in the past, flatten the rice, place a teaspoon or so of the filling in the middle, and shape it up. Perilla leaves are gorgeous herbaceous leaves that are very popular in Korea. Perilla is related to mint, but they honestly don't really taste that similar, in my opinion. If you're unfamiliar, you can find it at a lot of Korean markets. We're just going to smear a little bit of our samjang on the perilla leaves to act as an adhesive to the rice. Go ahead and set your onigiri right on top of that perilla leaf, and boom! The end result is this adorable, naturey looking, Korean-inspired onigiri. Okay, lastly, we are heading down south to the country of India. This is butter chicken that I made earlier, then let cool before slicing into tiny pieces roughly the same size as our kalbi. Butter chicken is a rich, spiced, unctuous Indian dish that, oddly enough, is Britain's national dish too. Which makes sense because it was developed by Indian cooks to please Western palates. But nonetheless, it's delicious and perfect for onigiritization. Beginning with the rice, drizzle roughly 2 tablespoons of ghee, aka clarified butter, and another tablespoon of black mustard seeds. Form the patty, add the teaspoon or so of filling, close up the ball, and shape the whole lot like we've been doing. By now you should be a pro. The ghee makes it a little tougher to shape the rice for this one, but it's totally still possible, just giving you a little heads up there. The final product is a pretty speckled onigiri with a bright orange surprise just waiting to be bitten into. Alright, we've done the work, now it's time to enjoy the fruit of our labor. First up, we have our classic Japanese tuna mayo onigiri. The best way to enjoy this is as is. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know, that whole thing. Next up is our onigiri Americano. As some of you know, I'm not big on ketchup here, but it certainly wouldn't suck on this thing. Third is our South Korean barbecue-inspired onigiri filled with kalbi and kimchi, then laid on a perilla leaf. A little dash of soy sauce would be pretty solid on this, but totally optional. Then last but not least is our mustard seed-laced butter chicken onigiri hailing from India. The addition of ghee makes this one the most challenging to shape, but I think the pros of adding it in outweigh the cons. Now, all of these little babies were delicious in their own ways, but of the 3, I would have to say my favorite was the Korean onigiri, followed closely by the American. But I'm just one guy. Let me know in the comments below which onigiri you dig, or specifically don't dig, whichever. You know, I'd love to know. That was a lot of fun, and if I had it my way, I would onigiritize the entire planet. So tell me, which country would you like to see turned into an onigiri? Comment below. Thanks a milli for watching. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more vids like this. If you're an existing omnivore, what up? Welcome back. Great to have you back. Also, I finally finished the merch that's up on the website store, so check that out if you want. Anyways, I hope you guys dug the video. Cook hard, and I will see you next time.